I wanted to take a couple minutes to talk about a mental exercise that I do every day and that you should also. I've done this mental exercise every day for the last 12 years since the market crashed in the third quarter of '07. I use it to stay sharp and to just mentally prepare for my next couple of moves if the market shifts, which it definitely will. I began as a realtor in January 2000. I rode a tremendous upcycle from beginning of 2000 to the third quarter of 2007. 7 amazing years where the market just continued to go up and the city was growing and the market across the country was phenomenal. Then it all fell apart in the third quarter of 2007. That's when the shift began, and then it turned into a vicious down cycle from 2007 to about 2011 or 12. If you go back 4 decades, you'll see these market trends last about 5 to 7 years on average, almost to the T, going back 3-4 decades. So I began in 2000, as I mentioned. Right now, in 2019, we are coming off of a very rapid upcycle, which lasted about 7 years or so, 8 years, and the market is just starting to crest and roll over and slow down a bit. The market is shifting. Over the last couple of quarters, prices starting to flatten and prices have just begun to drop a bit, okay? So when the market crashed in 2007, and that's not what we have now, we don't have a crash, we have a little bit of a correction, but when the market crashed in 2007 and got worse in 2008 and 9, I always said to myself, if this ever happens again, I'm gonna be ready. Because I wasn't through such a cycle back then, but I have been through a couple of cycles now. So I always said, if this happens again, I'm gonna do A, B, and C. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3. And every day for 12 years, I've thought about that and collected my notes and prepared. And now it's starting to happen. So I always play this game with myself, just to prepare. And I say, if I knew for a fact, which I don't, but if I knew for a fact the market was heading in one of these directions, what would I be doing now, okay? And these are my numbers. These are where I put the odds, okay? I think we have less than a 5% chance that the market's going to shoot up again and prices are going to start to increase and activity is going to increase and we're going to begin another upcycle. Less than 5%. I give it a 50% chance that the market flattens for a while and just kind of bounces along flat for several quarters in a row, several years in a row potentially. And I'll give it a 45% chance that we're at the beginning of the next down cycle. I was riding high in 2007 after 7 years of a tremendous market. Then the market fell apart. And from 2008 to 2009, I think my volume and income dropped by 50%. Then from 2009 to 2010, my income and volume dropped again by 50%. And again, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but as you can imagine, it left an impression on me. And I always said from that day further, if I knew for a fact that it was going to happen again, what would I be doing leading up to that point, right? So, if I knew for a fact we were at the beginning of a down cycle, what are some of the things I would be doing? There's a lot of things I'd be doing. One, I would be more aggressive. What I mean by that is, knowing what I know, I would be advising my clients, especially my sellers, to not blow deals over $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. I'd be less wishy-washy and I would impose my will on those sellers to take that deal, because during the last down cycle, I remember there was a few deals that I was a little wishy-washy on. We didn't get it done. A year later, property was still on the market, and then we wind up selling it for 25% less. And I always kicked myself and I said, I should have been more forceful. I should have been more aggressive with that client and got those deals done. For their sake and for mine. I probably could have closed another dozen sales if I was just a little bit more aggressive when that was unfolding. The second thing I would do is to start to cut out low ROI expenses. Not trim all expenses, but trim those expenses that do not give me the best bang for my buck. Maybe some expenses, I'm just doing it because the market's great. It's just I'm trying new things, maybe getting creative, experimenting, doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Some of that extra spending I would start to contract, start to cut out low return on investment costs. Things that work, my lead generation, staples that bring me leads, bring me deals, help me close deals. That'll never change in a good market or a bad market, but low ROI expenses are the ones you really have to start to rein in as the market starts to shift. Cut low ROI expenses. So number 2 is to cut low ROI expenses. The third thing I would do is to really focus in on what I think the market of the moment is going to be. What I mean by the market of the moment is this. In 2007 and 2008, as the market started to dramatically shift, the market of the moment became the short sale, REO market, foreclosure market. And a lot of us agents that were able to recognize that early on in the shift and pivot towards that part of the business was able to really thrive in that down market and really pick up some business that we didn't normally focus on, like short sales, foreclosures, REO bank business. In the good market, it really wasn't there. In the bad market, in the shifting market, it became the market of the moment. So always try to figure out what that market of the moment is going to be and jump on it early in the shift. Not 4 years down the road. Early on in the shift, jumping on it is the key. The fourth thing I would do, if I knew for a fact we're at the beginning of a down cycle, is I would advise my clients specifically and accordingly. What I mean by advising them specifically is this. If I knew we were at the beginning of a possible slowdown, not even a guaranteed slowdown, but if there was a chance of a slowdown, I would be advising my clients a certain way. My sellers, my developers, my builders, my investors, my buyers, my advice to my sellers and my developer sellers would be this. Do not get into any projects that are going to take you 8 months, 12 months, 24 months, 36 months to get out of. Don't buy that 15 home townhome development that isn't even zoned yet, where you're not even going to break ground for a year. You're not going to be able to build it for 2 years, and we're not going to be able to sell it out for 3 years. It's too much of a risk. If we were in year 2 of an upcycle, different story. If we're in year 7 or 8 of an upcycle, where the potential for a shifting market is imminent, and if the data is already starting to play out like it is right now, where you have a softening market, where you have prices softening a bit, you should not be buying 3-year projects. It's way too risky. And I would be adamantly advising my guys of this fact, and that's what I'm doing right now. My sellers, not my developers, but just my sellers who have a home to sell, one property to sell, I would really be advising them to take every showing seriously, every feedback seriously, and every offer very seriously, deadly serious. Sometimes sellers have an attitude to just blow off offers if they aren't perfect when they come in. You really need to pay attention to this, and you really need to advise that seller that, hey, 8 out of 10 lowball offers that come in, we close. We get them up to a acceptable number. So just don't blow it off. You can't wait for the next offer that may never come in a shifting market. And here's a tip for buyers in a shifting market. Now, the type of buyers I work with are predominantly investor buyers, developer buyers, builder buyers. My advice to them is to keep your powder dry. The market's shifting. In a relatively short period of time, potentially, you're gonna have the pick of the litter of deals. You're gonna be able to swoop in and buy properties at a discount, at a bargain. So if you have the ability to just relax and wait a little bit, keep your powder dry, wait for the right time to swoop in and scoop up some properties. If If I knew for a fact the market was going to turn and we were at the beginning of a down market, my fifth tip would be save as much cash as you can. Now, saving as much cash as you can sounds obvious, right? But it takes discipline. Me personally, thankfully, I've always lived way, way below my means. So it wasn't hard for me in 2007 and 8 and 9 when my income changed and was reduced dramatically because I always lived well below my means. If I knew it was going to happen again, and I knew we were at the beginning of another downturn, I would really be hoarding my cash, right? For a lot of reasons. For obvious reasons, you want to have as much cash on hand as a reserve for your business, for your personal life. You also want to have cash available to make strategic decisions in a down market for your business. And also as someone who might be looking to buy a home for my family or invest in a piece of real estate. I would like to keep my powder dry as well in a down market for those reasons. So live below your means. It's the key to a long, successful business, especially in real estate. Save as much cash as you can and prepare for lesser times. Okay, so if I knew for a fact the market was going to flatten out for a consistent and elongated time, I would do a few things. First thing I would do is I would take the opportunity to really drill down on my numbers and learn my numbers even better than I know them now. What I mean by focusing on my numbers is this. Right now, I know what my average price is. I know what my average commission is. I know what my average days on market is for my listings. I know how much I spend per listing. I know how much each transaction costs me. I know what my P&L says. However, in a slowing market, in a market that kind of levels out a little bit, what I found is there's a little bit more time to work on your business rather than just in your business. We're never slow. Even in a bad market, we're super busy. And in a good market, we're super busy. We're never slow. But with a more even-keeled, flat market, there tends to be a little bit more time. So I would take that time to really drill down on your numbers. Spend a couple extra hours a week just refreshing your numbers, getting them all up to date, knowing them inside and out, because that is going to help you make some big decisions in the future. It's going to help you make some big decisions currently, where we just came off of a up market and now we're flat. And if we ever go up again or down again, which we will, having those numbers prepared, up to date, accurate, will guide you and it will help you make some big decisions. Decisions on where to spend, where to hire, where not to hire, who you can hire, making some big decisions like adding another assistant. Just having those numbers and knowing them inside and out is paramount. Another thing I would do in a more flat market or in more of an even-keeled market is I would spend a little bit of extra time bulletproofing your transactions. What I mean by bulletproofing your transactions is this. We're not in an up market anymore. Sales have slowed, prices have come down a bit. So it's even more important to make sure that these deals that you're closing do not fall apart along the way. What I did is I hired a transaction manager. Her sole job is to take every one of my files from contract to close and just bulletproof that transaction. She has a spreadsheet that's probably 50 or 60 columns wide, and she follows every one of my files from contract to close and make sure it is perfect and there are no loopholes, no opportunities for any fish to kind of squirt out of the net. So no holes in the net. It's even more important now in a flatter market and in a down market to make sure that these deals, once they're under agreement, stay under agreement and make it to the settlement table. If I knew for a fact the market was going to flatten out and stay fairly flat for a while, another thing I would do is to kind of adjust expectations with my clients. And I went through this in 07, 08, 09, and I really learned this lesson well. So as the market flattens, a couple of things usually happen. It takes longer for listings to sell, and it takes longer for buyers to buy. And we're going through that right now. Our days on market for our listings are going up. The amount of homes a buyer needs to see before they pull the trigger, that number is increasing as well. So you need to get out in front of that. You need to know that, and you need to know that that's going to happen, and you need to advise your clients accordingly. You need to set expectations properly. And I'm having the same conversation with all of my sellers right now. They're used to the market last year when it was tremendously better. It was hotter, it was just a crazier market. They were used to putting a house up for sale, it's selling in 3 weeks. Now it takes like 3 months. So if you don't prepare them for that, if you don't let them understand that that's happening, there's gonna be a disconnect there. And they're gonna think you're not doing your job. They're gonna think that because it didn't sell in 3 weeks, and we're now on month 2, you're slacking. So you need to get in front of that. You need to advise those sellers that it's going to take longer to sell your property. So plan accordingly, Mr. Seller. Save some money. Let your bank know that the loan won't be paid off in 30 days. It'll most likely be 90 or 120 days. Educate them on what the average days on market is right now and how it has increased compared to last year. You need to have constant communication with your clients and kind of keep them informed and be a strategic advisor to them in a changing market, in a shifting market. Set proper expectations. If I knew for a fact the market was going to take off and go on another vicious upcycle, what would I do? I mean, what can you do? There's not much to say on this one. You don't have to think as hard about this one as the other two because it doesn't affect your business in a negative way as the other two scenarios do. But if I knew for a fact that the market was going to go up and go up hard, what would I do? First thing I would probably do is I would cancel all vacations. What I mean by that is these cycles don't last, okay? Nothing is forever. When you're in the middle or the beginning of an upcycle, you need to recognize it and you need to plan accordingly and you need to capture it and you need to kill it and you need to squeeze every drop out of it because in a couple of years, in a few years, it's going to be over and you're going to go back to wishing that you did certain things when the market was good. So when the market's good, when it's easier, that's when you work the hardest. That's when you reap all of the benefits of the previous years and you get that low-hanging fruit and you close deals and you capture great clients in an up market. I've always captured some of my best clients, some of my long-term developers in an up market. That's a great place to find new clients, capture them, and keep them for the long haul. So the overall point is this: the market's going to change, then it's going to change again, then it's going to change again. It's always changing. These cycles, on average, run 5 to 7 years, but that's not set in stone. Anything can happen. So you need to plan accordingly. You need to think through your next few steps. You need to think about if the market changes in one of these directions, what are you going to do? What should you be doing now in anticipation of that change? Because once it changes and then you're trying to figure it out, you kind of miss the opportunity. Someone who's well prepared for that change is really going to succeed. And if it's a down market, instead of your income falling off a cliff, if you prepare well and you think it through, you can excel during a down market. You don't have to fail. You don't have to do less business in a down market. You can do better. Just plan accordingly.